Hello, everyone. Welcome to ESS BizTools members webinar. So wherever you are around Australia, I hope that you're safe. And for those of our colleagues who are in the areas that are subject to lockdowns, we are thinking of you, and we hope that everything will turn out okay and that you will be safe. And hopefully all your team are safe and your clients are safe. What I want to talk to you today about is grant awareness helps implement business advisory services. So we're going to look at the papers which we have within ESS BizTools that relate to grants. And we're also going to go on to the Grant Finder program, which we have available for our gold subscribers and some of our subscribers who have signed on specifically for it. ESS Biz Grants. So first of all, I want to thank you for your support of ESS BizTools and ESS Biz Grants. We hope that you are getting material which you can beneficially use with your clients to help them add value, to help them run better businesses. And it's our aim to make sure that by supplying these services that your team will be happy because they'll be doing different diversified work, and that your accountancy firm, business advisory firm or bookkeeping firm will be happy because you are diversifying your income streams. Something that Deloitte recommended about 5 or 6 years ago when the debate started about the effective technology and changes occurring in the business community. So thank you for your support. We do appreciate it. What we're going to look at first of all today is the grant material that's contained within ESS BizTools. And then we're going to have a look at the grant finder utilization, which is ESS Biz Grants. So if you have any questions on government grants, can you either log on now onto and leave a message in chat, and I will answer the question during the webinar. But if you're watching this webinar at a later time and you have any questions, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, or telephone me on 1800 232 088. So the first area that I want to go to is to visit the ESS BizTools website, and we are going to do that now. So you should now have the website on your screen, and obviously on the left-hand column is all the material within ESS BizTools. I hope you're familiar with it. If you're not, if you're a newcomer to what we have in this package, they're the various product packages. You just click on them if you're a gold subscriber, and you can go to them. If you are a business advisory services starter package, which we used to call bronze, you click onto the BAS starter package and you've got the material that you've got available. If you've subscribed, I looked up there and saw survival. If you've subscribed for any of these other packages, all you do is click onto them and you will get access to them. But we're going to go down now and look at sections and papers. And this is where a gold subscriber would go to get sections and papers. If you're in the starter package, the access that you have to the sections and papers, which is reduced, it's 343 of the papers. I've now clicked onto it, and we have these section headings. There's 68 sections in the total package, but I'm going through to government grants and assistance. Now, this is the Australian government grants. And this is the index to them. And if you wish to access any of these, you click on the name and you can then access the material. So I'll show you that in a moment. I just want you to see there's a wide range of Australian government grants. They keep on changing. They keep on issuing new ones, especially in this COVID-19 period. They take a bit of keeping up with at present. There's quite a number of Screen Australia grants. We've got business growth grants. Some of the COVID grants. So the one I want to show you is an important grant for you to understand that it's in this system. And it's the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant. Why is it important? Because this is an integral part of the innovation journey that comprises research and development, accelerating commercialisation grant, a grant of up to $1 million on a 50% basis, and then the early stage innovation company status, which means that that company is in a privileged position to be able to raise share capital from investors, because the investors receive some taxation benefits, significant taxation benefits. In each of our papers, there's an executive summary, which gives you an overview of what's included. And you can see this one is quite a large grant, a lot of material in this. There's a lot of steps to take if you're going to try to get $1 million in a grant off the Australian government. And there's some forms that are attached in the paper. There's also a set of PowerPoint slides that you can use. But I just want to show you the Accelerating Commercialisation paper. So we're just going to go to New Share and click on that paper and bring it up. So you now should be able to see that grant paper, 014196. Every paper has a set of contents that gives you an overview of what's included. So if you have got clients who are undertaking research and development type activities, this is a grant that can fit in when they have finished the research and development or got to a prototype stage. I don't know if people ever finish research and development, to be honest. And there's a grey area, there's no doubt about that. But the starting of the Accelerating Commercialisation grant is when the prototype is basically completed. Now, it mightn't be the final prototype because it might get changed in the next step, which is the commercialisation process. I worked as a consultant for Oz Industry for 11 years as part of our consulting services on the predecessor program to this one, and that was called Commercialising Emerging Technology. And what we observed was this break between there's research and development, and then the company has to decide what it's going to do in the commercialisation process. So the Accelerating Commercialisation grant is an interesting grant for you to look at. Our notes go for 41 pages, so there's a fair bit in it. And you don't have to have every client applying for $1 million either. You might only need $150,000 or $200,000 in a grant, because remember, the client has to match this grant. So I'm just showing you this today because I've just finished some updates on our program to introduce an innovation package, which, as I said earlier, is covering the research and development, accelerating commercialization grant, and the early stage innovation company status. And I'm doing this because in a webinar we conducted last week, I had well-known Australian accounting mentor and coach, Andrew Geddes, with me. And we went through this process. And Andrew and I had a conversation that has now been abbreviated to 8 minutes in the recording, which we will be sending to you as part of Members Alert when you receive that early next week. And this was a observation made by Andrew Geddes as to how this program, this innovation program, can work. And that's why today, when I'm looking at grants, I'm mentioning it to you to indicate to you, I think you should have a good look at it, because it's a great way to generate additional value for your clients, but also additional value for your professional services firm, because there's a fair bit of work required in these programs to get the client to be successful. So just to finish on accelerating commercialization, it basically starts at the prototype, first prototype. It might get changed, and it can get changed under the accelerating commercialization program. And it goes through to when the company receives the proceeds from its first commercial sale, or from the first commercial sale. Now, commercial sale means at the proper markups, not a discount to get more feedback from users, to get their comments, their criticisms. It's when the business has satisfied that they've made a commercial sale. Now, that's another grey area. I got no doubt about that. And I've had some debates with the people from the Entrepreneurs Program about that, but that's the way the rule stands. So you can have some non-commercial sales, and I've had clients that have been able to successfully do that, particularly if they're doing trials for companies. And the one that really comes to my mind is where about half a dozen mining companies agreed to trial out a product, and they put some money into it, but they only paid about a third of what the marketing consultant had identified as the potential retail price. Oz Industry, on behalf of the Entrepreneurs Program, accepted that, and the client continued to get their funding because they hadn't made their first commercial sale. So that's a bit of an overview of how that grant works. What we might do now is just move on and just go back to the website of ESS BIZTOOLS. And what I want to do is go through to where the state government grants are, in case you're not familiar. When we first started this program, there wasn't many state government grants, so they got pushed to the outer limits in our program. Now there's a lot more of them, but here they are: Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, ACT, South Australia, Tasmania, Western Australia, Northern Territory. I think that's all the states and territories in Australia. They've all got grants, so you can just click on and get the indication of what the grants are. These are the Queensland ones, and you can click on to any of those, and you can follow them through just as we did on accelerating commercialization. So I hope that that assists you. Obviously, a lot of these grants then potentially provide work that can be done. On the accelerating commercialization grant, it's not unusual for the grant funding to include the preparation of a business plan. And if your firm is proactively promoting to your clients that you can offer business advisory services, including the preparation of business plans, I would hope that your client's going to give you that assignment to undertake. And half the cost will be paid by the accelerating commercialization grant through the Entrepreneurs Program. There's plenty of other grants that can lead to work for accounting firms that are proactively offering business advisory services. I've undertaken all sorts of programs. We've done business mentoring. We've done project management. And there's normally project management in that accelerating commercialization grant because there's a quarterly report and a quarterly cash flow update that's got to be submitted. And some clients don't like the idea of having to do that. So you can factor that into the program. I've done management training. I've done training in corporate governance. I've done key performance indicator analysis for clients, all under government grant programs. So there's plenty of them, and you just need to be aware of them. And I think you need to be proactive in talking about grants to your clients, because at times the client will have a general idea there's grants out there, but they're waiting for their key advisor to communicate with them and say, I think you can get that grant, let's go for it. And as I have been implying, in many cases, there's a significant amount of work that your accounting firm or advisory firm or bookkeeping firm, if you're offering these services, should be able to provide. We've got all the resources we believe you need within ESS BIZTOOLS. If you think there's some things there that should be there that are not there, let us know, please, and we'll look at providing it. So that's where the state government grants are, and hopefully that bit of an overview helps you. What I'm now going to do is to share my screen again and see if I... Now, hopefully you've now got the ESS BIZ grants on your screen, and you can see what I'm looking at. Now, this is on a separate website, obviously, and you will need to log in. You will have a separate login for ESS BIZ grants. I'd had already logged in before, so I've now just gone straight through to the part of the site that has got explanations for the various terminology we've used. So you can look at that at your leisure, and I'm going to take you through it now. If we go to client profiles, you can see I've got a lot of profiles that I've opened there that I use as training material. Let's go to a blank one to start with. You need to insert your client's name, or you can insert a reference number if you like. We are storing this information in the cloud. So if you don't like the idea of your client's name being there, you can put a code in. You need to identify what type of entity this client is. Are they a company? Are they a partnership? Are they a trust? Are they a research agency? What are they? You just click on it. And the question is, do you export products and or services? So you answer yes or no. The default in these ones is no, but click on yes if they do. Do you import products? Because what we're trying to do is in the back end, we are trying to organize various grants to be made known to you if we think that they might apply. So if you say that you export, we're going to bring to your attention some grants that relate to exporters, which you might not really know anything about. We need to know the number of employees because a number of the government grants have got a maximum number of employees or a minimum number of employees. We've put in here the bands where these numbers seem to apply. There are some grants that don't ask the question about numbers of employees, so that's all right. Others, there's a band up to 20, then there's a band of 20 to 200, and then there's a band of over 200. And as governments change, we change the bands as they change their requirements. Do you have an ABN? You really need to be able to answer yes to that question. Even if you're doing a trial for someone about to start a business, always answer yes and make sure you get the ABN application in before they commence business, of course. How many years have you been operating? That's also a very important question. In a number of grants, they will say that in effect that startups can't apply. But in other cases, they encourage startups. So we've looked at the band. So where they don't ask anything, we say that's nil, of course. Then we've got 0 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, and over 3 years. Seems to be the questions relative to years. The annual turnover is another area that the grants have got various different amounts included. So we've got under 500,000. So it could be nil, but that falls in the category of under 500,000. And then we got 1 million to 1.5 million and so on, 20 million, 30 million, 50 million, and over 100 million. You just click whichever box applies to your client. Are you registered for GST? This is another one that you should answer yes. And if the client is basically just starting up and wanting to know what grants they can get, you could make sure they register for GST, obviously, before they get started. Are you tax exempt? Most of the material we've got in ESS BizTools does not apply to tax exempt entities because we've designed it for SMEs. But I've noticed that a number of the state governments and territory governments have now introduced the concept that you can have tax exempt organisations as well as tax paying organisations applying for the same grant. So we have tried to factor that into the system. So if you are tax exempt or you're acting for a tax exempt client, answering yes to that question will not blow them out on all grants, because some grants in the back end we have made the system understand that a tax exempt applicant can apply for that particular grant. We've also asked the question, are you involved in research and development? It doesn't mean that they're applying for the research and development incentive rebate. Again, in the back end, if you've answered yes to that, we are going to make sure that some of the grants that are particularly built around the assumption that for anyone to apply for them, they should have been involved in research and development. And that's particularly on the grant that I've just talked to you about, accelerating commercialisation. It's very doubtful that anyone could ever apply for that grant if they haven't done research and development. Now, we need to save that, but I haven't filled any of that in because I'm doing this on the shortcut. So I'm going to go back to client profiles. And I'm going to go through and find one of these that I think I can use, which will just give you a an overview of something that you might, oh, there it is, test client. And we'll go back, we'll edit so we can go back to the beginning. So this is one we set up, test client. So we've used this a few times. I meant to set up a new one for a new group of people today, but I never had time, unfortunately. We've decided that they're a company, or they are a company. They do export products. They don't import. They've got 16 staff, so they're in that 0 to 20. They have an ABN. They've been in business for 6 years, these people, and their turnover is about $5 million. So they're in the 1.5 to 20 million. They're registered for GST. They're not tax exempt, but they do some research and development. So that's the first part of it. So that didn't take you long to put that data in, did it? Maybe a couple of minutes. There's a summary then of what we've just put in, so you can check it. And the system, we've put the address in. So this business is in the Northern Territory at Alice Springs. And we've got the financial details. And then we have to insert the business industry code. Now, this is the code that you're recording on the tax return. So it's the Australian Bureau of Statistics figures that have been adjusted by the tax office. And it's that system that we're using. We thought it was a lot better to use the tax office system dealing with you as accountants rather than the Australian Bureau of Statistics. And we can see here that this business, which I didn't tell you before, I should have, is a fabricated steel manufacturer. So we've put the code in. Now you can have more than one code. Someone very proudly sent me an email one day and told me he'd put 20 codes in, the system still worked. It will. I don't know who his client was that had 20 different codes, but you can have more than one code if that describes what this client does, because that's what we're trying to find out about. And you can search some keywords to get the right codes. Okay, so that's the basic entry that we've done. That's your work at this stage. You're now going to see what our system can tell you. So we click search grants. Now we've been playing with this client. So we've got in pending, there's 43 potential grants. Now it doesn't mean he's going to be able to apply for them. Pardon me, but they're there for your observation. And how I think you should use this product is that you're doing this on your own, so you can produce the report that this system produces, so you can submit it to the client when you're having a meeting with the client. And my strong recommendation is that you process every business client through this system every year. When you finish the accounts and tax returns, because you can then produce the report to the client while you're going through looking at the result. We've already been playing with this, so we've already got 15 grants potentially eligible. So we might add 1 or 2 to that. And what we're now going to do, and we haven't identified any. I thought we had some in there, but someone must have taken them out. If when you go through the process, you're potentially ineligible, the system will show you as potentially ineligible. So let's go back to the pending grants. We're in Northern Territory. The Australian Bureau of Statistics is basically a summary of the grants that they have. So of the programs that they have available. I'm just going to, you can see that all these grants here are Northern Territory grants. I'm going to skip past them because we're talking to an Australian-wide audience. And perhaps we'll bring this one up, a business growth grant, which is an Australian government grant. Now, as soon as you hit a grant, you get this executive summary. This is part of the entrepreneurs program. that we were talking about before, which is the program that is operating the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant. You can look at the funding. Now, this one's from 2,500 to 20,000 on a 50% basis. Now, this is a grant that's very popular, and I think has potentially got quite a few hundred different types of businesses eligible for it, if you look at it very closely. We can go to the application toolkit, and what it will do is give you the paper. So if you click on that, you're now going to get the ESS BIZTOOLS paper that we have written. Now, obviously, you can badge this with your own name when you send it out to your clients. But this is the paper that explains how this grant operates. And in some cases, you might have to read that yourself if you're not familiar with the grant that you've pulled up. But it's telling you how it operates, so you can have a discussion with your client. And then we got some additional criteria, and these need to be answered. Some of the additional criteria has only got one question in it. Some have 6. Probably gets back to its complexity, and normally as the value of the grant goes up, pardon me, the government seems to want to know more information. So to show you how the system works, has the applicant operated in Australia and filed business activity statements showing ongoing trading in at least the last 3 consecutive years? So this is where the number of years in business has come into play. And we say, yeah, we've done that. So we click yes. Does the applicant have an intent and opportunity to engage or increase trade in Australian markets and or markets in other countries? Or for the supply chain facilitation stream, had the intent and opportunity to engage in trade with a purchaser so as to directly and demonstrably contribute to or enhance its trade in Australian markets and other markets in other countries. I didn't write all that. That's the summary straight out of the government's material. So you look at that and say, yes, we're doing that. You can click yes, but I'm going to click no just to show you what happens. When you click no, it puts a little cross there, and that is now going to be, if I close that now, and I go to see what happened, and I go to potentially ineligible, and there it is. It's been shown up as being potentially ineligible. But we might say, oh, gee, no, that's not what we expected. So we'll go back and we'll search the grants again, and we'll go to that grant. Which is now in, I did that the wrong way then. It's now in potentially, we bring it up, we look at it here. So I've gone to potentially ineligible. We go to the additional criteria and we're showing it's kept the answer we gave. We say, no, it should have been yes. Now, as soon as we change yes, it come up with apply now. So we could click that and that would take us to the government website. But I don't want to do that at this stage. And if we close it, we close and we go to the pending grants. It was 41, it's now 42. And in there somewhere, we're going to have this business growth. Somewhere in the list there. I just can't see it, but it's in there. I suppose I better find it. I can't find it, but it's there somewhere, which is a, just check it's no longer in Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. We should have gone to potentially eligible. I went back into pending. That's why I couldn't find it. And there it is there, Business Growth Grants, Australian Government. There's the summary. So we've got it into the right area. So that's a bit of a trap. You need to go into the right heading, which I wasn't in. We're in now the potentially eligible. So remember when we started, we had 15. We've now got 16. Okay, so you can continue to work through the classifications of the pending grants to see whether you can find any more of them that might be eligible for the client. But let's say we now want to have a look at potentially eligible because we want to produce the report. So we look at this now. These are the potentially eligible. We say that's all right. We're going to send this to the client, and the client can tell us what they want to do. We click print report. So the system is downloading all the material. And we have a report. So it comes out in the name of the client, which we call test client, Pty Ltd, remember. It's saying prepared for ESS BIZTOOls, but as a subscriber, it would have your name on the report. And it tells the client there's 18 potential grants and gives a executive summary of what the grant's about and also tells them how much money's involved. So on the accelerating commercialisation, 5,000 to $1 million. I don't think anyone would get a $5,000 grant these days. It probably should be 50,000 there, which I must change that. And then it goes through, and so it's telling you which grants which government they come from. So that's saying it's a Queensland grant, another Queensland grant, and so on. Now you'll notice that some of these state grants can apply to people who don't live in the state because I think the various state governments are using grants as a way of attracting people to their state to conduct their businesses. And you've got the Australian government grants. So my recommendation is you finalise the financial accounts and you sit down and talk to your client and you produce this report and basically say to the client, we have identified these grants. Can you have a look at it and let us know what you want to do? Now, a very small percentage of clients will say, thank you very much. I don't think I'll bother. And if you knew your client was that way inclined, because some people just don't like government departments, I wouldn't have done the process for them in the first place. Some of your clients, and again, I think it's probably less than 5%, will say, okay, we'll look after it from here. We'll go away and do the applications. In my experience, that doesn't happen because clients generally are too busy and they hate paperwork. They hate going through this sort of application process, and they basically see it as a job you can do. I think it's important that you clearly identify to the client that this is a new project. This is going to be charged to them separately, and you could send them a new engagement letter for the grants. So you're going to help them on the application process. That means that you will probably be having some communication with the government officer, but you need to make sure your client's going to be available to have a conversation because the government officer will want to make sure that the client is committed to this work, that they're just not going to have to deal with you as the accountant. Some of the work that's to be covered in this grant is work that you could probably undertake if you're offering business advisory services. So make sure your client understands that. In some grants, the government people will require 2 quotations. So you need to understand that that can happen. You need to tell your client that can happen. And you then need to work out who the client's going to approach for the other quote. My experience with government departments over a long time And as I said, I was involved in the COMET program, Commercialising Emerging Technology, was that government departments will try to ensure that the work is undertaken by a firm that's in regular contact. In other words, their normal professional advisor, because they're keen to ensure that SMEs are getting ongoing professional advice. So if your quote's only a couple of $100 or even 500 more expensive than what the other quote is, there's still a very good chance that you're going to be given the job, especially if your client says they want you to do the work, because after all, the client in virtually every grant is paying 50% of the cost. So that's how the grant program works. I don't have any questions that have been sent through to me. If you think of any questions later on, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, and I will get back to you. I hope that this observation and analysis is beneficial to you. Stay safe wherever you are in Australia, especially if you're in the lockdown areas. And I'll talk to you again next month when we do this update on matters within ESS BizTools to help you deliver business advisory services. Have a great day. Goodbye.